this is really, so, we're having a lot of good conversation, and unfortunately, a lot of that hasn't been recorded, but let's record some of this so all of our other volunteers can sort of benefit from this conversation, right? So unfortunately, due to the gaming nature of just these red teaming, blue teaming competitions as is, sometimes that is a tactic that's used where they're like, this is how is the score check? Is it coming just one every 5 minutes? Okay, why don't I just turn on my service when the official score check, check is in, then I turn it off so it doesn't get hacked. That has been done successfully by winning teams in these cyber defensive competitions, right? And we don't want to encourage that, and we don't. So that's why we're the way we do pen testing and red teaming is completely different. We have a score chat, and that's why we're interacting with them to check with them in terms of, oh, if there's an exploit and your solution was to turn it off, it's like, sorry, we can't give you any points. But if we decide, oh, okay, if there's a patch, maybe for them to get points here is like, okay, find the patch it, and then we'll validate that the exploit no longer works. And then, okay, we're going to give you points, right? That is a good way of scoring, giving points. Another way, potentially, if no patch is available, we're like, okay, maybe that SMB v2 OOB exploit needs this functionality in the config file for it, right? So if you change some reg keys that turns off that functionality in SMB v2, then that's no longer exploitable. That could be a potential solution, right? And then so we tell them to do that, they do that, and then we verify, okay, we're going to give you points, right? That's good. Or if there's no way of turning off the features through the configuration, there's no patch available, but then we figure out, well, it seems the bad guy can only get through this route here from your DMZ, from your web server, so you have to firewall off SMB from those two machines, but you have to make sure that the machine with the XMB vulnerability can still talk to the HR system, right? So you got to make sure that SMB can still talk to this machine here, but you have to do some custom firewall to make sure where the attack vectors are coming from, that's blocked off. So, so now we're sort of doing more of real world skills that they would do instead of the gaming way these competitions usually do, where, there's just firewall deny all, right? We'll block everything. That has happened in these competitions, and we want to avoid that. And luckily, we have a score chat so we can walk through that, right? And really encourage the students to do the right thing, right? And have the opportunities to do the right thing and learn these skills that they might not have. So, yeah, you're kind of joking like that, but that's what we're trying to encourage, and that's what we're trying to do. And again, right? Dave says you can't shut off mission critical. In the real world, you can't, but in Cyberforce, no, in previous years, you can, and you can do that. You can win too. So that's why we want to change. We want to change the expectations, the culture, and some of the rulings. So, and the thing is, like, these tactics that were done in earlier years, I don't blame them because they worked. That was allowable, the competition. So I don't blame them. But now we're trying to shift gears for the Cyberforce competitions, so they don't have to rely on those kind of tactics. Okay. Oh my. Okay, Joe. Joe. Okay, I'm not going to give blue teams more bad tactics, but Joe has shared a tactic in the Discord that I've seen, and yeah, so he calls it very correctly a cheese strat, like a cheesy gamey thing that, okay, you can do because of how the environment is, right? To sort of, okay, we know, so I'm not going to tell that detail, but I've seen that strategy as well, and I kind of really, facepalm, like, you can't do that in the real world, So that's one of the things that we're trying to change here with the Cyberverse competition, right? So some of these very cheesy, gamey tactics that blue team and red team uses, because that's just the nature of the gaming and the rules, they do some really weird stuff that they would never do in a real world environment, right? I'm talking about real threat actors. Real threat actors wouldn't do this. And even, real red team engagers, they don't do that with their real customers, but they're like, oh, in this weird game environment, we have to do stuff. So they do these very customized stuff for these gaming environments. And we want to avoid that. We want to stick to more realistic, more useful activities, right? So that's definitely where we go. Night. Yeah, I totally agree. And that was my big vision, and it was really well received. And I think a lot of people sort of experiencing that. And I know Joe, he's like, he's a really smart guy. He knows these competitions, and he's seen all these kind of issues, and he came to the exact same conclusions, as I did. And yeah, he's been a really good spokesman to sort of help socialize and just make people more aware. Like, earlier this year, right, I gave presentation in terms of how we've been involving the Cyberforce competition, right, at the Way West conference. And I don't know if people know Jake Williams, right, malware Jake. He's a super famous guy in our industry, and his impression was like a lot of these really amazing hackers, they're like top tier hackers, and sometimes when they play these competitions, because of all these cheesy stuff, they feel like it's a complete waste of time. They're like, and the thing is like, if they were given an opportunity to share like their domain and some like their really specialty of all these really amazing knowledge of these different aspects of cybersecurity, the students could have benefited so much. But what happens is, Blue Team does these cheesy strats, and then Jake can't get in, and then it's like, wow, what a waste of his time, and missed opportunities by the students. And we're trying to get rid of that, so that when we have really good volunteers who say, you're an expert with like lateral movement, with the most recent way that Windows does its different mechanisms of RPCs, right? If you have that knowledge, the students could be so much more valuable if they get to experience versus, oh, they're just going to block you from your IP address, and then they don't get any of that benefit, and I have seen that in previous years, unfortunately. Oh geez. Oh yeah. Yeah, so yeah, we're having funny comments about, unfortunately, people are joking about Blue Teams. What they end up doing is they just unplug their system, right? And for all intents and purposes, that has been the concept behind that is basically what they do for a lot of these competitions, where they'll do the equivalent of unplugging the network cable or unplugging the power, right? Or shutting down this port, right? Where in the real world, that's your critical infrastructure, That's what's sort of enables the power generation, right, to be sent through all the different cities and neighborhoods. And you're like, yeah, I'm gonna turn off that computer. Yeah, in the real world, that's not gonna fly. Yeah, that's the other thing, is that the last year and this year we're really exploring some really novel ways of doing a lot of more automation and a lot more different ways of infrastructure some of this, so it could just be more rich. The competition will be more rich, and we can do just way more cool stuff. And here, let me just pull up the MITRE attack framework, right? And this is going to be one, this is one of our metrics, right? And fortunately, I don't think in the past, all of these cyber competitions has sort of been able to sort of do good coverage of this, right? It's like, okay, if you're running a cyber defense conference, or previous years, right? Like, are you doing just like maybe 2 of this and basically 1 of this, and that's your red team competition, right? It's like, actually, for this red team blue competitions, you can do quite a bit of this, but you have to infrastructure your environment a way so we can hit all of these, right? So yeah, hopefully we're sort of, last year we built the foundation, we're doing some new stuff here, and we're gathering the data. That's one way to help convince the organizers of this, is if you gather like, real solid data, to say, hey, according to our data we're collecting, we're seeing issues here, we can't implement this, and then we can present that, then there'll be much more open to like, okay, what you're proposing makes sense, you have the data to back it up, let's explore this, so that's how you can potentially convince next year for us to have even more powerful stuff, right? So both the red team can do some very modern, advanced, cutting edge stuff, right? Really cool cutting edge stuff, and the students can get experience with this and also learn what are the best cutting edge blue team stuff, or the skill sets they need to deal with what is the most cutting edge RCEs and privilege escalations, right? So yeah, really good conversations. Oh my good. Geez. Okay. Yeah. So now people are just sharing some really good stories about how in these different cyber defensive competitions, so to me, if you, funny enough, right? So one of the complaints for certification such as OSCP, and for some of these competitions, right, is they complain, oh, that's too much like a CTF, that's too CTFE. And funny enough, what they mean in that context is like your sort of, say you have some vulnerable box, some hack the box machine, right? They say, oh, that's too CTFE. That means it's doing some really strange puzzly stuff that you won't see in the real world, right? It's more like, so those kind of puzzly type of solutions, right? You're like, oh, there's this port knocking thing that no one ever uses, right? And then, oh, there's a clue here with this, you have to do stenography in this one weird picture, and if you add those two things together, right? If you thought the same as a creator, then you're like, oh, there's an IP address from connecting the dots, and then that will get you to the next part of hack the box, right? To actually get to the final solution. That's what they say, it's too CTFE, and you don't see that in the real world. And unfortunately, what Todd is sharing, that sounds to me like a very CTFE intended solution, right? Where it's like, really, you're gonna unplug this and you're gonna do this. It's like, will you really do that to bypass the planted vulnerability? I don't know. It sounds cool from like, in a way, but doesn't sound very realistic to me. But yeah, these are really good points. And earlier this week we were talking, people were sharing like, hey, they had a lot of experience, and for me, I'm like, I really love to chat to people who have prior experience with other cyber defensive competition, earlier years of CFC as red team and blue teams, because I learned so many different perspectives where I'm not completely aware of at all, where people have all these different experience, or for their team, they had this one different red teamer that was doing them, or they were in a different location, and they experienced the competition night and day to how I experienced, or the people I talk to. So when I get to chat to these other people, like, light bulbs in my eyes just get wide. It's like, wow, that happened. Like, okay, that's cool, or like, that's a problem. We need to sort of think about how we fix that so we don't deal with these problems anymore, right, in the future. So that's why it's like, please share. We have a red teaming, blue teaming thread under our bootcamp channel. Jump in there and share. And people who are new, please read and sort of digest of what the people are sharing. Yeah, so people are just reminiscing about their war stories. Oh my God, yeah. So Knight was like, he's talking about obfuscation, and it's like, oh my God. So that's another pet peeve of mine. Dynamic, or dynamic type defense, or kind of like, what do they call it? Kind of like this obfuscating kind of defense, and also offense as well. Where does that fit in a competition? Again, it seems kind of like on a CTFE kind of thing. So I guess with that kind of thing, if they're kind of do some kind of weird dynamic defense, or kind of like, some really cutting edge honeypot thing, I think it makes more sense for that type of activity to have like more of a science fair kind of approach to it, right? Where your scorekeeper would, like, instead of like, oh, I can't find the IP address, oh look, there's a million port open, oh, I wonder if this is a honeypot or not, like, oh my God, yeah, oh hey, I'm in this thing with all these default accounts, obviously it's a VM in a honeypot, I'm gonna throw all my exploits. No, good red teamers are smart, and they're just gonna like shrug their shoulders like, what a freaking waste of time, right? So for those kind of defense, I think if we want to do those kind of things or allow them in competition, I think what makes sense is more, you have a security experts, and they're going to chat with you like, oh, how did you configure it, right? More of a purple team, I would say, more of a purple team approach, like, oh, you did that, well, according to my expertise, it would be better if you configure it this way, or according to that, we don't have a week to test all aspects of your dynamic defense, your deception network, right? We don't have all this time to test your deception networks to find out potential vulnerabilities. So give us your config, and we can tell you about okay, you did it right, or like, oh, there's some issues here, or why it wouldn't work in a real world environment. I think that's a really good conversation for you to have with some of our expert red team volunteers, right? Where they're like, that sounds like a good idea, but that's not going to fly in a real world environment. Or maybe they'll give you advice like, okay, maybe if you configure it this way, that would make sense, and it won't add in additional risks in your environment, right? That's more interesting and fun versus, oh, look, they're giving me wrong information for my nmap scans. Oh, I'm going to nmap scan for 5 hours for this competition because they're using some deception type stuff. So, oh yeah, so Nathan asked about tooling. You don't need to use Metasploit per se, but that's something that we're kind of standardizing on to help everyone to sort of be on the same page. So my suggestions of people who are more advanced and want to do, I would love that, but FYI, last 2 years, Active Directory has not been working. We can talk it out. I have a special active, hopefully next year we'll get Active Directory. This year, we don't know, probably not, we'll see. But yeah, so I can say that for this recording session. Question about Metasploit tool, right? The option we have is the information we give in the Git repo, it's the standard way. So to support the hundreds of volunteers we have, right? But if you are more advanced in experience and you could do the equivalent with your own custom scripting or your custom tooling framework, feel free to do it, right? But we're not going to provide the technical support for it. And it's on you to make sure that functionally you have a one-to-one functionality of what we're trying to do with the tools that we're standardizing and defaulting over. I agree with Joe. I agree with Joe right here. If you're doing anything extra, add it to the playbook so all of us can do it. Yeah, that was our requirement for more. You want to do custom stuff, you want to do your own thing, you have that option, but you have to share in the playbook so all of us can do it, so all the blue teams get the same experience. Yeah, I would love, yeah, I would love that contribution that Joe is asking for as well. But I kind of know what you need to do that. And according to the people who helped me with a VM, right, that the conditions might not be there for that to work, but we'll see. We'll see, fingers crossed. But definitely next year, we'll definitely have that for next year. Okay, I think that Joe loves Dockers. FYI, I love Dockers as well. So, you know, and I think that's for the standard issue environment. I think that's what we're gonna do, but someone has to take the lead on that, right? Yeah, we have a lot of people who love Docker as zero. Someone has to take the lead on that and figure out, you know, according to the stuff we have to do with the pen testing, the stuff we have to do with our playbook, right? What stuff we have to standardize, which makes sense for Dockers, and you know, someone get that done, right? So funny enough, like I am sort of a very old school guy, and so all new technology, it takes me a very long time for me to get comfortable with, right? And then finally, I'm now like I'm much more comfortable in the recent 2 weeks with Dockers, and and a lot of things like, wow, this is so much easier to, because I'm very OCD with certain my configurations. And the fact that Docker kind of cleanly gets encapsulated all that and gets this all working now I'm a much bigger fan of Docker versus previously where I was like, really another encapsulation kind of environment, really, not just yet another one. But yeah. Oh, see, and I imagine, yeah, there's probably dozens of other really good options with their fanboys, right? So yeah, good times. Yeah, passwords, definitely. Okay. Yes, that's funny. So yeah, so Knight is bringing this ironic, right? So if you're like a werewolf memes or whatever, it's like, wait a minute, you know, CTF framework being C to CTFE, and that's what's funny is that I can eventually pull up this really good blog post where he's explaining, this guy has a lot of experience in the CTF community, and his point was that how do you go about creating a CTF challenge that's actually a good one versus one that's just really annoying and very puzzly, right? And so funny enough is like he calls them like bad CTF challenges, right? That means more of the puzzly one. And for the more good CTF challenge, he says, okay, these are the reasons why they're good CTF versus one that more puzzly. But what's funny is that I think in the common usage now of the word CTFE, it's what he means by bad CTF according to that blog writer, right? So it's kind of ironic about people's and their use choices and what's sort of now the common usage of, hey, that's too CTFE, right? So even though it's coming from a CTF framework. So yeah, I'm spot on. There's like, wait a minute, right? A lot of irony in our community. Okay, with that, I think I am going to end this portion of the recording. We also have a meeting on Monday that is more tailored for our training leads, but anyone is willing to join. So, you know, I'm one of the red teaming leads. The two other red teaming leads is Tony Markle and Shane McFly, and Tony has been leading the efforts with the assignments, right? Signing all the different team members. Levi Lloyd has really stepped up and helped big time there. So big shout out to Levi. So, you know, for them to, they have to add hundreds of accounts to our Git repo, right, in Discord. I had to do that for the last 2 years. I had to do that. I think last year I added about 200 people to our get repo manually by myself. Dave McClurg, I think he helped too. I think he helped, he had like 20 people, right? He helped a little bit, but I had it manually added. And now people are in our training lead channel, right? And they're training leads. They're doing a really bang up job there of just really helping each other and guiding that. Thank you. And then, people like Joe, Jared, and Dave, you guys are helping, like, helping the beginners, people with questions, and really do an amazing job with contributing to our Git repo. So I really want to give them a shout out. Please continue. You guys are doing amazing. And other quick shout out is like Leon and Jesse. They helped a lot with the VMs, adding all our vulnerabilities to the VMs, right? So I have to give a shout out to them. They've been amazing. And for people that are interested, so, we could still do injects, right? So all the other VMs, we could do real-time injects. The way we do that is if they're a Unix box, we have right-carded SSH access. So we can just write Ansible scripts to SSH in there and change things a little bit, right? To make it vulnerable for an injected play. So we have that option with SSH. On the Windows box is WinRM, right? White-carded credentials, Ansible scripts to do some PowerShell stuff through WinRM, right, to change stuff. So we still have that an option. So if people are wanting to contribute something like that, see what we already have, make it work in your own environment, and see what we have so you don't conflict with what we already have, right? And if you feel like it's a good thing, ping me and we'll see, and then we'll see if we can get it added to as one of the injected plays for our playbook. Yeah, so thanks Leon. Yeah, Leon has to go. He's been doing really amazing work. So thank you, Leon, for that. And with that, I believe I am going to